Yeah, tell me about it. That's how I don't have it. I need to take this stuff out one body to the
This has nothing to do with this is a part of
Where is Miss Williams?
not our
Her label.
that's what bothers me, that he hasn't gone further to find out.
Just
Because people don't read all of right now. No, there isn't. And it says very clearly,
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 10:03. Can I please ask everyone to take their seats?
It's just Stephanie for now. Shift down just one. Move over one. I missed the.
It's okay, Lee. I got one. I think I got something.
I mean, we can print it out. I just thought I had one up here already.
I had it in my stuff. I'm sure it's probably here, and I'm just not seeing it. I hate these little chairs.
Yeah, that's what all this is about.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Can I please get everyone's attention? It is now 10:05. Would everyone please take their seats? It's time for us to get started. Again, good morning. My name is Ann Phillips. I am president of the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board. We'd like to take this opportunity to welcome each of you all here this morning and thank you for getting out of your beds to be here on time. For those of you at home who are watching with us today, thank you for joining us. And we want to welcome you to ask any questions that you might like to ask of the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board by sending us an email or a text message. All of our contact information should be shown on the YouTube site. Please, may we please, thank you very much. Again, welcome to the November meeting of the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board. I apologize that my voice is not loud enough to scare everybody into being quiet. Miss Stout, Mr. Hunter and Miss Stout, would you all please? Thank you very much. The purpose of the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board, for those at home and for those of you new to our organization, our purpose is to facilitate citizen participation through the neighborhood planning units. Each of the 25 planning units in the city of Atlanta sends to this board a representative, a person who represents the entire NPU in your voice in city and government matters. As we proceed through the day, if you have questions, we're going to ask that please raise your hand and we will address any questions that come up. And again, for those of you at home, in case you did not get a chance to hear me, on the YouTube website, our contact information is there. So if you have any questions about anything we discussed today, please use one of those contacts to let us know. Thank you so very much. We're going to get started by doing a roll call. Excuse me. Leah has she'll do one. She accidentally put one on your We'll continue in just a moment. We're trying to give Ms. LaRue a moment. We're going to go ahead and get started with the roll call and check this off. NPUA, Mr. Dickerson. NPUB, Mr. Rao.
I am here.
NPUC, Mr. Gober, I'm sorry. NPUD, Mr. Martin. NPUE, Mr. Barnett.
Present.
NPUF, Ms. Skopczynski. She's not here yet. NPUG, Mr. Thurman.
Present.
NPUH, Ms. Lee.
Present.
NPUI, Ms. Glover.
Present.
NPUJ, Mr. Penny.
Present.
NPUK, Mr. Taylor.
Present.
Oh, Mr. Taylor, I'm sorry. NPUL, Miss Belil, I apologize. Miss Belil. NPUM, Mr. Kessler.
Here.
NPUN, Ms. Stout.
Here.
NPUO, Mr. Slupner. NPUP, Mr. Hunter.
Present.
NPUQ, Mr. Toomer.
Present this time.
Okay. NPUR, Mr. Dodds. NPUS, Mr. Lamont.
Present.
NPUR, Mr. Ross. NPUV, Ms. Flowers.
Present.
NPUW, Mr. Hassan. Welcome. And I need to change your name on the sheet. Okay. NPUX, Ms. Jones. NPUY, Ms. Wen.
Present.
And NPUZ, Ms. Phillips, and I'm here. Let's see how many people do we have. I count 15 people, so we do have a quorum. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda.
Motion to adopt. Second.
I'm sorry, I heard something, but I didn't hear it. Oh, what'd you say?
To adopt.
Motion to,
Seconded.
okay. It has been properly motioned and seconded that we adopt the agenda as presented. I'm going to ask, is there anyone that objects to the adoption of the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda will be adopted by unanimous consent. All right. Moving right along, receiving of the minutes from the October 21st meeting. The meeting report is included in the packet, I think. I'm moving so many pieces of paper, I'm not sure here. Okay, your meeting report for the October 21st meeting is in your packet. Did anyone see anything on that report that needs to be corrected in any way? If not, then may I get a motion from the floor that the agenda be, the report be accepted as presented?
So moved.
Thank you so much. And that was motioned by Mr. Toomer and seconded by Mr. Lamont. Is there anyone that has any objections to acceptance of the October 21st meeting report? Yes, ma'am.
I wasn't here, so I'm gonna abstain.
You're going to abstain? Are you abstaining?
Yeah, because I wasn't here at all.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. With the exception of one abstention, the meeting report will be accepted as presented. And we'll note that Ms. Stout abstained simply because she was not here for the previous meeting. I didn't hear. Okay. Next item on the list, public comments. So we're going to ask anybody that has public comments to please come up to the mic and make sure that you can, have the mic close enough to you so that we can hear you. Try this, just try it and see if it's on. It's not on. He's coming.
I know what you mean, Debbie.
Okay, Chris.
Gotcha. Good morning, Chris Brown. Before you have some documents on your table. Forgive me, I have little risk, but I just wanted to make sure I provided communication about some of the communications that's happening electronically and behind the scenes. Last month, we had an APAB meeting here where we know we don't recognize alternates in this forum. And so the concern is that it's gotten so bad, so far off, that it has started to increase the climate in this forum. It's also decreased participation among people who also want to do the work and also want to participate, but also have a lot to offer. And so I've communicated to the law department and to the planning department and to constituent services about coming together to figure out how do we fix this. There's more than one option. There's also an option to also amend the code to add eligible members. Again, most people, I led public safety. So many people call me all the time about public safety and why we're not meeting. And I explain to them, and they just simply don't understand or don't agree or try to convince me to do something else outside of this forum. But I think this is the proper forum for which these committees was created. Maynard Jackson had a brilliant mind when he put this together, and for citizen participation, we must keep that in mind. We're not a commission. We are a unique board that appoints to boards and commissions, and we must keep that spirit at hand. But I think we've gotten way far off from where I think we should be, so much that what happened last month should never happen again. And we'll continue to move forward from there. So that communication has been done, and we'll follow up after the holidays. But I tried my best to make sure that you had copies, that people was communicated, and that people know what's going on. So thank you. Also, you do have a communication from NPUS, who also supports alternates and delegates, and want us to find a mechanism or a way to make sure that we keep alternates and delegates, to make sure that the structure of what we've created over the years remain in spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
I'm Steve Carr from NPUW. I'm the alternate delegate to NPUW, as I have been for all of this year. And it's bothersome to me is that our NPU and two others, S, Chris Brown, and C, Laura Hawk, who's also been elected one of the secretaries for this organization, has been discriminated against and disenfranchised, not only as individuals, but the whole NPU, all of C, all of W, all of S. It's really bothersome. This can be resolved, but not by decisions of fiat by the clerk, by the law department. If the law department's going to make any pronouncements, they need to be here face to face with us. And if there's any rationale that's asked for, they need to answer. I don't see them here. Is anybody from the law department here? Is that you? APAB was established about 50 years ago as an umbrella organization for the NPUs, not the NPU chairs. And until last January, every NPU has had a potential of 3 bites at the voting apple. The delegate, the alternate delegate, if the delegate doesn't show up, and or the NPU chair. Sometimes the chair is also the delegate, sometimes the chair is also the alternate. So in that case, there's just 2 bites for that NPU. We have people missing today. Where's the alternate? This room should be packed full of people because we deal with citywide issues. Unfortunately, the machinations, the meddling of the law department and other people have forced us to chase our own tails.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Carr. Your 2 minutes are up, and we appreciate your comments.
I got 30
Thank
more
you.
seconds. From 2 other meetings, I reserved my
Mr. Carr, the
time.
parliamentarian
In the past,
said
I
your 2
reserved my
minutes are
time
up.
for the
Thank you
future.
so very much. We have another public comment. Come on up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nabil Hammam. I am speaking to you as just one of the citizens of Atlanta. I've been in the MPU system involved for over 20 years. I chaired the Tree Commission. I've chaired the MPUE. I was MPUN, so I've been around. Today, I'm speaking to you about the Police Training Center / Cop City. I'll call it the center so I don't take any sides. I'm watching the city divide and things getting radicalized and things are going a little too far. Some people feel it's war, some people feel it's not. I ask us as the MPU folks to think about trying to bring bring the emotions down, help the citizens, even though there's a lawsuit in the courts and there's peaceful demonstrations happening everywhere. I support all that, and the courts at some point will tell us whether this thing will move forward or not. I want us to think forward a little bit after this, because the things are escalating. They're not calming down. So when this is done, there's one side that's going to win and one side that's not. So this center will be built or not built. In either scenario, there's a group of people that are going to get pissed off, which will create a division in the city. We are a family here in the city of Atlanta, and the MPU is the backbone of the family. And I urge all of us to try to take this narrative to our neighborhoods, encourage them to demonstrate and do all they do. But let's not take it too far where we end up being national news, because after that, comes things that are really not productive for the city or for the citizens. And so, we have politicians that are doing their work, whether you agree or not. I'm not taking sides. I'm not on any side. I'm not as familiar with the details. I just do not like to see us so divided on certain issues. There are so many people that are so far for it or so far against it. I would like for all of us to have conversations to bring narrative down and say, this country runs with the rule of law. So whatever happens will happen at some point, and we need to think about long-term, what happens next, and how can we keep moving forward. The issues in the city do not go away. We have a lot of issues, from affordable housing to income inequality and all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nabil. I know you did contact me about this, and I did not ask you when we were talking. If you get an opportunity, will you jot your recommendations down and send them to us? You did you had some recommendations as to how this can take place. So if you would you please send those to APAB?
I will definitely do that.
Thank you so
Thank you
much,
for letting
and
me
thank
speak.
you for being here. Do we have any other public comments? None, all right. Moving right along, we have 2 presentations this morning. We're going to continue with the APAB strategic planning, and as well as the second presentation, of course, is a continuation of the revision of the APAB bylaws. So we're going to turn the floor over now to Ms. Leah LaRue and the Department of City Planning.
Good morning, everybody. Everybody can hear me, right?
I can.
Mr. Barnett. Funny. All right. So let me give you a heads up. I'm not feeling my best today, so pardon me if I sound a little sluggish. All right. So as a quick rundown that we do every single time for the benefit of those that may have forgotten or may have zoned out the last time I talked about this. In February, you did your strategic planning session, and in April of 2023, you adopted the recommendations from that strategic planning session. In June, you requested that DCP support or help you all move the recommendations forward, which we did. So starting in July, you adopted your mission and purpose. And then in August, you adopted a set of rules of engagement and decorum. In October, you adopted recommendations for your board composition and committee structure, and you adopted a path forward for establishing and amplifying a united voice. Here we are in November with the last things that remain are from I don't know if y'all have this. Do y'all have? Yeah, y'all have this too. So under November and December, thank you. I forgot what month it is. Under November and December, we'll be working on the onboarding process and the communications feedback loops, and as well as the standard operating procedures, which when we presented to y'all back in, I believe it was July or August, it was July, we switched the timeline a bit from what was recommended by the consultant to save the standard operating procedures for last, because we want to make sure that everything that comes out of these conversations gets properly incorporated into the standard operating procedures manual draft that we'll present to y'all once it's ready. My request, Daniel and Kip have been working on this. My request of Daniel and Kip was that we have something ready for y'all by the end of the year to view in terms of a draft standard operating procedures manual. I would just note that it will be a living document that will be updated fairly regularly until we get it right, just because of the work that the bylaws committee is doing and trying to pull some of the language out of the bylaws that doesn't necessarily need to be in bylaws, but could indeed be captured in an SOP. So it'll be a living, breathing document for a while until y'all are pleased with it and find it to be useful. Then we'll close that project out. And even then you can amend it by vote. All right, so for the standard operating procedures for critical tasks, this is the communications loop that you have in front of you. It says at the top, standard operating procedures for critical tasks draft. And this is I don't think there will be any surprises here. It's what we've been talking about from time to time all year long. What we're proposing is in terms of how you deal with new issues, a member of the board will introduce the issue. The president will refer it to the committee of purview or the working group of purview, or take whatever action, referral action is appropriate for the matter. The committee that it's referred to, or working group or team, will then work on that recommendation. They'll do their research. I'm sorry, that issue. I didn't mean to say issue. I meant to say issue. They will then work on that issue. They will do their research. They will have whatever meetings need to be had, work sessions, et cetera. And then that committee will submit its recommendation to this board. This board will then vote on that recommendation, and that will be the official position of APAB, of the board. Any questions on that first part, on how new business gets introduced, Mr. Toomer?
This may be too granular, but I believe that in this process, there has to be a timeline by which this committee that it's assigned to has to report back and make its recommendation. Without that, we can have things tabled forever. So I believe that within the process, you must include timelines.
So are you recommending then by the following meeting, the next month's meeting, they
No,
have some?
I don't have a recommendation.
Okay.
I just say that for results, we must have timelines included in reporting back and so on.
Ms. Skopczynski?
Thank you. One of the recommendations for the way the committees would operate would be at their first meeting, they would set the timeline, they would set their rules of protocol and how they were going to proceed. So I agree with you that there needs to be a timetable so we can keep moving these things along. But I think that's going to depend on what the committee is responsible for. Some issues they may be able to respond and complete their work in a month, and sometimes it could take 3 months or longer.
I kind of agree that we have to have the ability to work with the committee based on topic and complexity, but I believe that we should have set by the APAB body an expected timeline with room to modify that with reason and logic by the committee. In other words, if they come back and say, this is too complex to do it in the 15 days, then, and we propose we do it at such and such and put it to vote by the entire body. But I don't believe that a committee should have the ability to table something and prolong something that they don't like. And that's, I know, a little bit nefarious, but it does happen. So that's, I want to hold a strict standard of some sort of accountability to this process.
Would the, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Would it be appropriate to have the committees report every month on the status of their assignment? And if for some reason they're getting caught in a tabling loop like that, then the chair would have responsibility for replacing the committee chair.
As a suggestion, a lot of the issues that come before us are time sensitive. They come up and we need to get something to the council immediately. Would it be a safe bet to say that for time sensitive issues, within 30 days of the distribution of the issue to the committee will come back with whatever recommendations they're able to produce, but if they're not able to come up with recommendations, they can ask for an extension. But on regular issues, perhaps we might put a stated timeline. I'm just asking. Mr. Lamont.
I don't think it's inappropriate to ask for a report back every 30 days, because even if if it's just to say we need more time, I think that's sufficient. So I don't think it doesn't hold a standard to anything being done. You're just saying where you are in the process.
I agree if there is no intent to delay something. However, if there is an intent to delay, we are getting into a scenario where the committee has the power and APAB should be the power, and it should be able to go to vote to force. However, what I would suggest is maybe that go back to executive board and you come with a proposal, and instead of taking up our time now, but that is a concern that maybe the executive board can look at. So that is a motion, that the executive board look at rules and timelines on that issue.
Okay, I saw Mr. Hunter, Ms. Stout, and then Ms.
That was a
Flowers.
motion, Madam Chair.
Wait a minute, that was a motion.
Anybody second?
Does anyone second that motion? Okay.
Right,
No,
guys.
we didn't get a second. Okay, thank you. Okay, and the parliamentarian has advised me that this is simply for the presentation. This is not for voting at this point. Mr. Hunter, Ms. Stout, and then Ms. Flowers.
I agree with the sentiments of what Mr. Toomer is trying to convey. And since we are talking about SOPs, for me, I think that any issue, regular issue, come before the body, we should give 60 days. That allows you to have 2 committee meetings, right? And also regular issues. But for example, if we also, this issue that rises that says we need this to get prioritized and a response back, not thinking of a particular committee, but such as the service quarters, when that motion was made, it was asked and voted on by this body, that it be an answer back in 30 days. It's been probably 6 months. So I think that there is validity in what he is saying. And so as we are developing these SOPs, I think we should come up with a standard in terms of any issue that is referred to a committee. We want to have some type of action within 60 days. But if we, as a body, as in this board, decide that we need to prioritize something, meaning we want it to be an answer back within 30 days, that should be made via motion, and then that can change that prioritization of that particular item. And I also don't disagree that we can make motions at any point in this meeting about anything.
All right, Ms. Dowd, let's go on, Ms. Dowd. Amy?
Amy, did you still want to make your comment?
I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
I guess we don't know intent sometimes, is my comment.
Okay, thank you.
So we should not maybe assume the worst.
All right, so Ms. Flowers?
And sometimes the action is no action.
Okay, all right, Ms. Flowers, go ahead.
Well, I agree with Christine. I think that we should have some kind of a boundary or set timeline for us as the APAB, and then the committee can operate around that timeline. So there should be some standards set right there in there. Yes,
Okay, Ms. Nguyen?
I don't know, did I miss something? I thought Deb was referring to the bylaw process. We certainly wouldn't include that in the bylaw
She's not talking
process.
about the bylaw process.
Ms. Phillips, if I may, once you're done with your.
All right, I did see Mr. Rouse' hand next.
Yeah, so whatever comes out of this conversation about extensions, I want to talk about the first step, where the president refers it to the committee. The issue comes up, gets referred to the committee. Is there anything that happens in between that, where this whole board, as Mr. Toomer says, gets to speak about it before it's just, we decide to start that process? For example, if somebody says, I think we should send out a letter about the Gaza war. If the group started talking, they'd probably say, no, I don't think we should. Let's not refer that to committee. But it's your decision, according to this, to decide. So is there a phase in this where we discuss whether this is an issue we want to engage at all before you start the process?
All right, thank you. That is a good question for clarification. My interpretation of it was, if a member of this board brings an issue to the board, we put it on the floor and the board discusses it. If the board then decides this is an issue we need to address, then and only then would the president assign it to one of the committees. The board actually makes the decision as to whether we want to do something about an issue.
I'm not sure I agree with that, but I agree that the board should give you input, but I like the idea of strong leadership and the president deciding organizationally and as an executive what makes sense for this thing to function. And that puts you in a key role of saying, okay, I've heard what everybody says. I think we should refer this committee, or I've heard what everybody should said. And, I don't think right now it's a good idea, so I say no. That's just my thought.
Okay. Ms. LaRue, I'm sorry. We got Ms. Flowers go, and Ms. Jones, and then back to Ms. LaRue.
So where it says member introduces issue, it sounds like it should, if you want clarification, Mr. Rao, we should put maybe member introduces during a board meeting, but it says introduction of new business. And I believe new business is on our, or it should be, maybe not.
It's not.
It should be on our agenda.
Amendment to change the agenda.
So you would then have the opportunity during the new business portion of the agenda to raise an issue and have that discussion and then finish the process.
Mr. Hunter?
I also agree with Mr. Ross, and I want to go a little bit further. There should be criteria for what is new business for this board. If I want to discuss what's happening just in my NPU, the appropriate venue for that is my NPU. We should be discussing citywide issues. And so there should be some type of formula that is happening or could happen throughout different parts of the city, therefore making it a citywide issue.
So our perspective is a little different on that, in that we're expecting that this board will now henceforth forevermore elect leadership that you trust to make wise decisions for the board. It's our expectation that you're not going to elect someone who's going to refer to a committee a study of agriculture in Arkansas. It's just, why would you elect that person? Why? Like, that's our expectation. And so I don't know. At the end of the day, that's for y'all to decide. But our recommendation is definitely that the president refers the matter to the committee. The board always has the authority to override the decision of the chair. So if the chairperson or president wants to refer a matter to a committee and y'all feel strongly that it's not something the board should take up, then that's the time to make that motion. But I would just caution y'all to remember that our goal here is efficient and effective and productive meetings and a productive board. And if you're moving in the direction of discussing and debating before a matter gets referred to a committee, you're then having committee meetings in your general board meetings every month, which means your board meetings are not going to be board meetings. They're going to be committee meetings, and they're going to be way longer. And come 12 o'clock, you're all going to be antsy and wondering why your meeting is so long.
I saw Mr. Hunter, Ms. Jones, and then Mr. Toomer.
So this is for a first read, but I take it that you all do want feedback?
We absolutely, we're following the same process we follow with all of these documents. We're collecting whatever feedback we get here. We will email it out to you if it hasn't already been emailed, and ask you to send us your recommendations over the next almost month, and then we'll present it to you next month for your adoption.
But so you don't want feedback right now?
I've jotted down feedback thus far about the timeline in particular and about how the matter gets referred.
So that we don't prolong this.
That's why I was ready to make a motion so that we can move on.
Well, I was going to say, well, so that we don't prolong this, let's go ahead and jot down any thoughts that you have and make sure you get those to her via email. That's the purpose of, our discussing this, but we can't, take all the recommendations here today. But please send your recommendations or your feedback to planning, and she, of course, is going to send that to us for us to review, and then at next month's meeting, we'll decide, what works. Now, we're going to go ahead and take the other two questions that I saw Ms. Jones, and who else was that? Oh, Mr. Toomer, okay. Ms. Jones?
So my feedback is, if the process isn't that we discuss in front, to make sure that we're not doing committee work, which I understand, I would at least then ask that there be a president's report or a chair's report or something of the kind that allowed the chair to say, these are the things that came before me, and these are the actions that I've taken. I refer this to committee and just a brief explanation of why, nothing that's too long, because what you don't want to happen is a committee to come back and start giving information, and people are like, well, where did this come from? Because someone sent an email to the chair, and then no one was kept in the loop of what was happening.
So I appreciate that, Ms. Jones. Our expectation is to add, and we've been working on proposing a new layout for your agenda. It's not prioritized because it's nothing sweeping. It's really more look and feel than anything. But we do intend to add the introduction of new business onto that agenda. We can certainly add a president's report if that's the will of the board, which I think is appropriate. The other thing I was going to add is that I think it would be helpful to include, this goes back to Mr. Toomer's original concern and the discussion around items getting lost. It would be helpful to include pending items at the bottom or the back of your agenda. Anything that has come before the board that was referred out to a committee, you could keep a running list of those items somewhere on the agenda that just shows the current status of it. Like it's in committee, or it's scheduled to come here next month for a vote, or whatever the case may be. We could definitely work that out as well, just for transparency. Plus, there's the dashboard that'll be on the website as well, showing the current status of the resolutions or recommendations.
Mr. Lamont?
I think to that too, if you do a new business, addition to the agenda, you do an old business,
yeah.
and then by default, anything that is introduced now will always occur under old business until it is completed business.
Yes, and if you see something that's a good point. If you see something there that kind of triggers, like, hey, It's been here for 3 months. What are they doing? You could call it out. Like, that's the opportunity to make sure it doesn't get lost or fall between the cracks and whatnot. I think that's valid. I think it's a valid concern. All right, so in the interest of time, under staff support, again, none of this stuff is really new. It's more so just to call your attention to it so we can adopt and establish an actual process that works for y'all. Under staff support, the president will give the recommendation to us. Now, this is after, of course, the committee has done its work. The committee makes the recommendation to the board. I'm in that first section now. The committee makes the recommendation to the board. The board then votes on that recommendation. So it becomes an official formal recommendation or communication from the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board. Now, under staff support, the president is giving that recommendation to us. We'll pretty much be here at the meeting, so we're kind of working through the secretary role and all that stuff. But conceptually, just visualize it with me. The president or whoever from the board is giving that recommendation to planning. Like this, we voted on this on Saturday. This is our official recommendation. Then we will route that recommendation to the Department of Purview. We'll track that recommendation for a response, and then we'll route the response and post it on our website on that same dashboard page that we showed y'all either last month or the month before that. Mr. Rao.
This is great. And it's conceptual. Your department is a bureaucracy, and as time goes on, personnel change. So can you clarify who at DCP, or should we clarify a title of a person at DCP who is going to receive our recommendations year after year?
So this was actually created over a month. This was drafted over a month ago. I mentioned it last month, but I didn't want to bog y'all down because we had other things before you last month. So I held this to this month. However, in light of conversations that the bylaws committee had this week, I would just recommend saying that the secretary provides the recommendation somehow. I don't know. I think that should be a conversation with the bylaws committee. I'm not opposed to clarifying the role of the person at DCP that receives the recommendation or that's responsible for it.
Well, what's your guess as to who the right person would be?
I'm gonna say the director for sure, because it could always be their designee. It could, you know, as long as it gets to Daniel or to Kip, you're good.
Let's go with that for a while.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Hunter.
I'm sorry, this is gonna be the last thing for this one.
You promise?
So, maybe. To kind of memorialize what Mr. Rao is saying, as part of this process, we're working through some things, and there are things that we are now asking for DCP to do or make a commitment to do for us, in the absence that there is a change in leadership. Will there be some MOUs possibly between us and or some kind of documentation, because there is absence of, as we had discussed in a different meeting, formalization of support. So how do we then secure that? Or is it just a matter of we're good until we're not?
Yeah, I think precedent goes a long way. I think having these meetings recorded and streaming on YouTube, on the former meetings on the city's website. Like, I've been consistent. I've been saying the same thing for 4.5 years. So if it's not on the YouTube channel, it's on the channel 26. I've said it on the record as the representative of DCP. So you have that. You have precedent. I highly doubt there's going to be an MOU that says DCP will do X, Y, Z. Highly doubt it. In fact, I'm not in support of that. So I ain't even gonna bring that recommendation to DCP. It's just not gonna happen.
So we're gonna go to citizen participation now.
Yeah, if there are no other questions for staff support, the last thing is citizen participation. And this goes back to, again, all of these are conversations that we've had over the past few months. It's our hope that with this board continuing in the right direction and becoming even more productive, effective, and of good reputation, it is our hope and expectation that city departments, before adopting any sort of engagement plan, will bring that plan to this board and say, we have this huge initiative going on next year, and here's our community involvement plan, our engagement plan, et cetera. The city department will present that plan to the board. APAB will provide the department with feedback, either during the meeting and or after the meeting via email or some other forum, but APAB will provide that department with their feedback. That city department will incorporate feedback and provide an update within 30 days. And then APAB will provide a formal recommendation on the plan. That is, just to preemptively answer the question, this is not something that I expect anybody to document in writing or agree to in writing or anything. This is what we hope the process will look like. And I don't think it will be a difficult sell as long as the reputation of the board continues to improve. It was not difficult for me to get planning to come here to present the community involvement plan for the CDP. It wasn't difficult at all. It was an ask and an easy yes. And I expect the same will be the case for the other city departments.
Do we have any other questions for Ms. LaRue about the plan?
All right, so what happens next, we'll bring this back up next month. We'll email it to you to get your input. We'll bring it back up next month with the request that you'll vote to adopt this as the direction that you want to go in for critical tasks. Secondly, we will present, hopefully next month, the outline for onboarding, which will also be a part of the SOP. And then we'll have for you a list, not a draft of the SOP, but a list of all the components that we expect to be included in the SOP. And we'll begin working on that early next year. We'll also be planning for strategic planning part 2 for 2024. Hopefully in that strategic planning session, which will also be a full day session, probably February, possibly March, but certainly in the first quarter of the year, next year, we'll do that with hopes of building out a forward-looking plan, a 3-year action plan or something like that. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Ms. LaRue. Appreciate that. Now we're going to go right in.
Mr. Hunter.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I just want to know what date, in terms of, do you want us to have the feedback to you by week so that
Yeah,
you can
that's a
get it
good
back up
question.
to us? That's
It'll
all.
be in the email, but it's usually that Friday before the executive committee. Hold on, let me tell you. So it'll probably be the 8th, but it'll be in the email. I think we agreed after discussion in a previous meeting to 3 weeks.
Thank you. All right, we can now turn the floor over to the APAB Bylaws Committee, Ms. Debbie Skopczynski.
Good morning, everyone. The Bylaws Committee met twice in the month of November prior to this meeting. We're trying to catch up with where we are with the strategic planning process. And you all have the bylaws report for November 2nd. Our last meeting was on November 16th, where we completed some of the work that we're going to discuss today. And you'll have a copy of that report in the next mailing that goes out. We're going to start off by reviewing the proposed officers bylaw recommendation, and this is for a vote today. We had a first read last month, and at that meeting, there were a number of changes that were made, which have been incorporated into this document. In addition, we did do a little bit more work on it. The first thing that was added is that in the draft that you all saw, it didn't include the responsibilities that were in our current set of bylaws, and where they were not redundant to the responsibilities that were approved in the strategic planning process, they've been added to this document. And if you've got the document in front of you, the one with big draft on it, under president, that includes items 7 through 11. Those 6 items were in our current bylaws, so they have been added. We did this, took the same kind of look at the vice president and saw that everything that was incorporated in our current bylaws was also incorporated in the strategic planning document, so that there were no additions that took place there. We spent some time talking about the role of the parliamentarian and essentially edited the parliamentarian paragraph that is in the current bylaws and also redundant to the strategic planning document. So we've ended up with one sentence. The parliamentarian may be appointed by the president to assist with adherence to the organization's bylaws, rules of decorum, and procedures. And that's referring to the SOPs that we've been talking about this morning. And then we recognize that the secretary to APAB is an officer, but someone that's non-voting. So we added that at our meeting on Thursday with the role of the secretary to record, transcribe, and certify the minutes of all meetings of the board and keep the originals thereof in a minute book, to act as custodian in the minutes and other board documents, and to process correspondence to APAB, NPUs, and other citizen participation organizations, groups, city departments, or individuals at the direction of the president. So those were all the changes that were made to that document. And the bylaws committee believes that it's now ready for consideration for a vote. And do you want me to recognize?
Yes, please, go ahead.
If I may
I
just
think
really
I'm
quickly,
trying to
everyone,
find.
the proper form we should be looking at, I know a lot of you all are looking in your packet. It's the
Yeah.
one that has the orange draft that's loose from the packet.
And I don't even have that.
It should be in the packet that was stapled together.
Okay. I got so much stuff here, I might have it. Just like to see it.
Can everybody find it? Looks like this.
Okay. Yeah, that one. Who else said that they didn't have it?
Everybody has it.
All right.
How many of
You
these
gave,
are
I know you gave it to them too. Okay.
It was right behind the agenda, or maybe a couple pages back.
Okay, yeah, I do have it.
Right behind the
It's back in the back, thank you. Okay, this is the document that she is currently reading from. So take a look at this, and if you have questions for her, please let us know now. Questions?
No, now that I have this, my question is null and void.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, also, the other documentation is also not the same that is stapled together. It is this, is that correct? It was with this draft, all of this?
I didn't put the staple together, so I'm not sure. When we get to the other two sections, I'll point out what we're talking about, and you can check. This, you should have an updated version that was published in the email that you got yesterday.
Madam Chair, point of clarification. Does everybody have this so that we can all be talking apples to apples?
That should be in the packet, is it not?
Well, that's the whole point.
It's
You have
a separate
this
sheet
and you
also?
have this.
Okay, so the article that's on the floor is the one with the big draft on, and I think when we get to the members and committees, we can.
Okay. Yeah, it's another separate, it's two other separate sheets. You should have one, yeah.
All right, so the proposed officers is effective November 18th, 2023. The amendment to APAB bylaws effective date December 16th are the forms we should be looking at.
Yeah, and it's the one that's where it says proposed October 21st amendment, amended 1021 and amended 1116. At the very top.
But
I'll do a better job of identifying them so that you make sure that,
I think you asked for questions. I didn't hear any. I'm willing to make a motion if the chair would like to.
Please.
Make a motion to adopt.
Second.
Who seconded that? Stephanie, thank you. All right, it has been properly motioned and seconded. This is the document that we're talking about. It has been properly motioned and seconded that we go on record as adopting the Article 5 Officers and Election Amendment. Yes, sir.
I just have one caveat, and I'm not sure that I'm that strong on it, but under the president, Section 7A, item number 11, it says with or without cause. I know. I'm just curious if we cannot remove the without.
Well,
It's not a strong suggestion, it's just something that I just.
to get a defined cause.
Right, that's why you leave it.
and that's an item that's in our current bylaws.
I understand.
Yes.
If I may add,
He had his hand up,
if
then I'll
if
come to
a
you.
officer is appointed, they are appointed by the secretary, by the president, and so they're not elected. So the elected officers are chosen by this body. Appointed officers are appointed, such as the parliamentarian, is what we're going to be, is there to serve and assist the president. If he or she feels like they need to remove that, then they should have to come to us and tell us why. I think that's fine. This is not for to remove the vice president. She can't do that, or he can't do that.
Right.
Yeah, it's just for
Right.
the appointed and the community chairs, which serve at the pleasure of the president.
All right,
And like I
thank
said,
you.
it was just something that,
Okay.
it's nothing major. I'm good with accepting it
Okay,
as is.
we have a motion on the floor, so let's go ahead and address the motion. Do we have any further discussion about the motion? All right, the motion, I'm sorry.
Other than,
If we approve this, it goes into effect immediately?
The effective date is November 18th.
Yes, we did the
That's
first,
what it
That's the
said.
meeting.
yes, we did the first read last month, and when it comes back to us for vote, it goes into effect if it is adopted. Ms. Nguyen?
I was just going to say, I agree with Rasheen. My understanding is the only time that that vote in terms of rescission of that appointment would come back before the body is when the bylaws require ratification of that appointee by the body.
All right,
So this language will then become the bylaw.
we become a part of
Yes.
the bylaws, yes, sir.
So could I ask what solid means?
What means? Where'd you see that?
Maintained, are you looking at number 4?
Maintains a solid working relationship with the Department of City Planning. It sounds like a colloquialism, not standard English.
That language comes from the director.
Is that in there already?
No, that was what was approved in the strategic
In the
planning
strategic
document.
plan, yes.
Oh, that's a different one?
It still says that. It still says that,
Oh.
but I don't want you to read this one because it's
Okay.
going to cause confusion.
Okay, well, anyway, I just asked that question. I don't care. I'll vote for this. Just thought it was
All
really
right.
funny.
It's
Again,
actually a very
there's
good
the
question.
motion-
Thank you.
The motion on the floor from Mr. Lamont and seconded by Ms. Flowers is that we go on record adopting the amendment to the bylaws regarding Article 5, officers and elections, officers and elections. Having heard the motion again, we're now going to take the vote. All those in favor, I'm sorry, this needs to be a roll call vote, please forgive me. Let's go. Mr. Rao,
Yep. Oh, yes, I vote yes.
thank you. Mr. Barnett,
Yes.
Ms. Skopchinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Thurman,
Yes.
all right. Ms. Lee,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Penny,
In favor.
all right. Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
okay. Ms. Stout,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
In favor.
Mr. Toomer,
Great work, Bylaws Committee. Thank you much for all of your time and effort. Yes.
okay. Mr. Lamont.
Yes.
All right.
Ms. Flowers? And Mr. Hassan?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
In favor.
Right.
Yes.
Ms. Nguyen? Ms. Glover?
Yes.
All right, me, yes. Mr. Kessler, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. All right, then that is a unanimous vote of the 18 members present. Thank you so very much. So,
That was unanimous, right?
yes, unanimous, yes, ma'am. And I have shown 18 members present. Okay, all right, moving right along, Ms. Skopczynski.
We have two additional articles to present to you as first read and to get your input, similar to the process that we use for officers. The first one is Article 7, Committees. And this is proposed November 18th, APAB vote December 16 through 23. And I believe if to check that you have the right version, the thing that would stand out would be on the back side where it says proposed by 2023 Bylaws Committee 11/18/23. Does everyone have a copy of that before we
Do you have it, Scott? See it,
dive
Scott?
into it? Okay. We had a lot of conversation about committees over several meetings and what we wanted to do with it, and thought that it would be more prudent for APAB, especially as we're developing in a different kind of organization with a different set of committee structure, that we take the most flexible route that we can, at least for the first year or so, to see whether or not this works. We know that the bylaws are going to be a little fluid for the next year. So our recommendation is to not specify the names of the committees, because I understand there are still some folks that are uncomfortable with the recommendations that came before us in the strategic planning process, but to call them standing committees and then special committees or working groups. And this language actually comes from an APAB bylaws that were written back in 1981. Thank you to our parliamentarian/historian for pulling those out for us. They were very useful. So we would have two different types of committees. A standing committee, that would be one that would be meeting all year for the course of the year and beyond. And then special committees, that would be the kind of committees we talked about in the last, with the last article. And also opening up the opportunity to, instead of creating a committee, but a working group, which may be a quick working kind of committee that may only take 30 days, that was, they could get their work done more efficiently by meeting by phone or at the local watering pub or whatever. In addition, there is a section from the bylaws that we incorporated around ex officio members, which means that the president and vice president shall be ex officio members of all committees, except they do not serve as members of the nominating committee, and that the president doesn't chair the bylaws committee. The last section is Article 6, meetings, actually comes from the current set of bylaws, and nothing changes except for two things. One, in towards the end of the first long paragraph, I've updated the section that says members without email addresses must notify the NPU division. It does say coordinator, and I don't think we've got a coordinator anymore. Is that correct, Leah?
Correct.
Right, okay, so division's more appropriate. And then the sentence that's highlighted in blue on my copy, I don't know if it's the last paragraph of this section that I've added. The date, time, and location of all APAB meetings, including committees and working groups, will be published on the City of Atlanta's website in advance of the meeting. And that was something that our bylaws committee felt very strongly about, that all meetings, no matter what form they are taking should be noticed appropriately.
All right, we have some questions for you.
Any
Ms.
questions or comments, recommendations? Yes, Mrs. Jones. Oh, I'm sorry. I
Ms.
didn't
Jones,
look.
Ms. Jones was first, then Ms. Lee, and then Mr. Rao.
Thank you.
So starting around the ex officio members, you don't name any committees and the standing committees or special committees or working groups, but then you specifically list nominating committee and bylaws committee. So should those be included as standing committees, even though I understand your reasoning for not wanting to name, but those could be two that are already established because we already know that we need to have them, and you specifically have called them out in this third section, but there's no reference to them anywhere else. And then on the back where it says that highlighted blue about the date and time in advance of the meeting, I would recommend some sort of time frame because someone could put it 10 minutes on the website 10 minutes beforehand and say it was in advance. That's a little vague. So putting 3 days in advance, a week in advance, or whatever the case may be.
Do you have a recommendation and how far in advance?
Maybe you want to distinguish between, say, like a special committee and a standing committee, or the general meetings. Like the general meeting should be posted at least a week or two in advance because we know, in advance. But if it's a special meeting and like an issue arises, say something arises today, and the committee is like, okay, there's a timeline and we need to meet by Wednesday or Thursday. So I think 48 hours notice or 72 hours notice is good timing.
Madam Chair.
Okay. I've taken those notes. Thank you.
Question.
Ms. Lee, be next.
Okay, Ms. Lee?
Yes, I was going to ask about the meeting, the last sentence where the bylaws are silent, Robert's rules. Given the situation that we've had recently about membership, that should there be an addition added on saying that as long as it doesn't conflict with the United States Constitution and the other names on the list. I don't know, would that clarify? I was just thinking that perhaps maybe something else will come up and people will say, well, it's not in your bylaws. So I don't know. I don't know the creed. I was just thinking of, what's happening now and whether or not we need to really clarify that technically we have to go by whatever the ordinances say, correct? How we should conduct business.
Right.
Okay. So I don't know whether or not we need a stronger statement. If people feel comfortable with it, fine. I just wondered if stronger wording would help eliminate some of the future issues.
Good point.
You say with any of these previous documents are silent.
Exactly.
That's what she's saying.
Oh,
Something to that effect, yes.
Right.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear, you were kind of low, I didn't hear
So
that.
the last sentence says where the bylaws are silent,
Mm-hmm.
what Mrs. Lee just suggested is that it should say where any of these previous documents are silent, not just the bylaws.
Right.
So the Constitution, City of Atlanta laws,
Right.
that is what it's saying.
That kind of,
That's what it all.
no, that kind
It already
of
says
stands that out
You
too
don't,
much.
it's my recommendation that is this the first read or y'all voting on this?
This is the first read.
Yeah, I don't even know, I would strike that whole section, frankly, personally. It adds no value to your bylaws.
What whole section is striking?
You mean she's talking
Article
about
6, Section 1.
Section 1 is that whole, all the way going down to the date, time, and
Oh,
location.
I'm sorry, I just
Which
meant
is the
that
reason
first
why it's
paragraph.
there, yeah.
I'm
That's
sorry, I meant that first paragraph
This,
at the bottom of this page. It doesn't add value.
the meetings part.
Yeah, the meeting is gonna comply with the US Constitution.
Wow, that's scary.
I think that was something that was in the previous
Constitution of
bylaws.
the
if
state
I'm
of
not
Georgia.
mistaken.
This all
Like,
comes
in
from-
other words, whether it's here or not, you're still expected to comply with all laws,
No, but
city,
it
state.
should be in
federal.
writing for the bylaws and it's mandatory
It doesn't need
language.
to be in the bylaws.
Maybe it doesn't, but it doesn't hurt that it's there because it's
It
mandatory.
hurts in that it is inefficient. It takes up a bunch of space for nothing, and it makes it harder to really know your bylaws when there's so many words in them that don't need to be there.
Simply saying that where the bylaws are silent, these are the controlling documents.
That part is important, and as I understand it, that's elsewhere in the bylaws.
So there's a separate
Robert's
section,
rules?
there's a separate section of the bylaws that says that the bylaws must conform to the Constitution, and city ordinances.
Yeah, you don't need it in there twice,
So
if at all.
So
Essentially-
I think it's not germane to the meetings clause, but
That's
it's stated elsewhere.
It's stated elsewhere in the
So
bylaws, yes.
hence it's redundant.
May I ask where is it stated?
So
Just,
remove those
that's
two
not too big.
sentences.
Would ask, where's it stated?
Mr.
Is it two? Yeah.
Where's it stated? Where did you just read it from?
So Article 10 of the bylaws states, the bylaws shall conform and comply with the United States Constitution, the Constitution of the State of Georgia, and the laws of the City of Atlanta. Where the bylaws are silent, Robert's Rules of Order shall take precedence.
Yeah.
So we just
Yes,
leave
so
it
you
in
don't need it
section 10.
twice.
Ms. Jones and then Mr.
You don't need it at
Hassan.
all, but definitely not twice.
So just to clarify, that says that the bylaws shall be ruled by that. But this is saying the meetings themselves. So I think leaving language somewhere in there saying that under meetings, that the meetings are ruled by Robert's Rules of Order, I think may be important because I think what you said the bylaws.
Good point.
So you're recommending that the last line of this paragraph be retained somewhere in the meeting section?
I don't need the whole, I don't need to be in a meeting and have to think about the United States.
No, I'm just saying, no, I'm talking about the part
I'm
where it
just saying
says where the
that-
bylaws are silent. Is that the part that you're saying we need to
I'm saying
keep?
that meetings shall be, there should be a clause in there that says that Robert's Rules of Order are the bylaws of Robert's Rules of Order.
The governing authority.
Madam Chair, rather than this body do the wordsmithing,
right.
can I recommend that we take it back to the bylaws committee? And quite frankly, we're doing this in piecemeal, so at some point, we've got to put it all together. And this may actually show up in another portion of the bylaws. I can't remember where it is in the template, but I think there's something in the template that also includes that. But I think the point is well made. Thank you, Ms. Lee, for making it, and I appreciate all your suggestions.
Okay, I agree.
So how much time do we have to give feedback? When would you like feedback by?
We haven't set the date for the next meeting, but it's probably going to be in 2 weeks.
Okay.
We're going to try and do it in 2 weeks because some of us would really like to get this sucker done.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. You had a question? Go ahead.
Debbie, when I look at section 1, section 2, it seems like the idea here is that the standing committees are an act of the board as a whole, and the special committees are an act by the president. And the second one says that the duration, et cetera, is sort of suggested or set by the president. All that makes sense. If the standing committee, if one of the things we've been talking about is trying to limit the number of these committees and whatnot, should we state in that section that we have such standing committees as may be required up to 4 or up to 5 or something like that? And secondly, it doesn't really say how you eliminate a committee if it turns out to not be helpful. Is that something we should be doing? Saying in writing, like this committee isn't doing much anymore or isn't valuable to us anymore, let's get rid of it. And then my last point, and you can answer any of them you choose to. It says that the meetings shall be canceled by a majority vote of the executive committee. I think that should say may be canceled. It makes it sound like the bylaws are saying that the executive committee is supposed to cancel. The executive committee is supposed to cancel the meetings. Shall. that's too strong.
Where is that language?
That's on the second page,
Oh, okay,
in the middle.
okay.
And Debbie, in follow-up to that, this is another place where you have the name of a committee, but then you don't have a committee description.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
I said this is another example of where you have a named committee, but we don't have that actual committee. So just giving that notice that as you guys are cleaning up the document, to make note of that throughout the.
Yeah, in fact, on one of these documents, I made a note that we're probably going to have to update it once we figure out this committee thing, structure. The bylaws committee may evolve into the governance committee's responsibilities, that it may not necessarily require a bylaws committee itself, because we'll be doing more tweaking than we are totally overhauling. The nominations committee comes out of the elections process that defines it. So once we have all those documents kind of pulled together and the SOP pulled together, then maybe, I think that will evolve. But it depends. With only 2 elected officers, we may not need that. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that we have to kind of think through. Ms. Stout?
Yeah, so if you can create a standing committee on any third Saturday, it's not standing. I mean, should we say something like we reconfirm them once a year or whatever? I mean, they're not standing committees if they're not defined and established. If we create them any given month, then by definition, they're kind of like special committees. I don't understand how they become standing committees. And like Richard said, we're going to have some way of getting rid of them if we can create one anytime we feel like it. I know you're trying to streamline it, but
So,
you have created no standing commit. You have no standing committees. It doesn't seem like to me with this language.
so it was my understanding that, and I agree that it's not detailed here, but the spirit would be that these standing committees would be set annually by the body.
Don't say that.
Right, I said, I agree.
Right.
Mr. Hassan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to point out, wherever Robert's Rules of
And
Order,
please forgive me, before you start, and I sincerely apologize to the board. I did not officially introduce to you Mr. Scholar Hassan, who is the new chair for NPUW, and he will be serving as that NPU's voting member. Have you all had your elections yet?
Yeah.
You have? Okay, great, thank you.
Scholar's also
and
my
when you-
classmate from GSU, so.
Okay, so you already know. Okay. Welcome,
You got a
Scholar.
good
Go ahead.
mentor.
I just want to mention where Robert's Rules of Order are mentioned, reference the addition. At least we do that for all of our neighbor associations, all the NPUs, as I know. So I know, oh, we're using the 3rd edition here. We could say, oh, no, it's the 1st edition. Like,
It just said reference the addition. They can't hear you down at there.
Oh, I agree.
sorry.
Reference the current
Yeah.
edition.
Oh,
And actually, at a recommendation that Rasheen had several years ago, we would just put current edition, latest edition.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that would be satisfactory, Skylar?
if we want to use the latest edition, yes, it's possible. A latest new edition could come out that we look at and we go, oh, I don't like this. And then we have to reference a previous edition. So if we want to say latest, that's fine. We just want to make sure we're not putting this into a position where a new version comes out and we're suddenly like, we don't like this. Or there's a huge section of it that we don't like. So maybe it would be better to kind of, yeah, like create a kind of agreement upon like, oh, do we like this specific edition or this specific edition? I think latest is fine for now, but just going down the road, be careful of that.
As opposed to latest, can you say the current I know that's splitting hairs, but latest versus current, they have a different context. I'm not sure if,
I think current is more subjective than latest, because an outdated version could still be current, or one could argue that it's still current,
Yeah.
even if it's not the latest, just because of the subjectivity of that language. But I think, Debbie, did you get that down, the feedback?
Yes, I did write it down.
Ms. Wynn had a question, and then I saw
Debbie, I'm still
somebody else.
not certain of the answer to her earlier question, in that certain committees are named in the body of this section, but are not really addressed as existing, other than, for example, that officers are, that the chair is an officer ex officio of the nominating, I think, bylaw committee, and it says they do not chair the bylaw committee. So are you, your intentions is to go back in and set those in as standing?
I think we need to get the elections process sorted out. Is that, what do you think, Rasheen? That's kind of your baby.
I'm sorry. I was talking across the table to Kyle.
Okay.
Ms. Kopczynski, you were pretty clear that you all are going to continue to review the language.
Just suggestions.
And then also, as the elections process is clarified and the committees are clarified, come back and let us know what that,
Right.
this new language is going to be.
And if there is anything that we decide after discussion and debate that it doesn't work or it isn't appropriate, then we'll come back and report that to you. Okay.
To answer your question, the latest drafts that I've been working on, I shared with you, we will not need, I'm proposing we won't need or have a nominations committee. We only have 2 officers. And that we can literally do an election in a year, in the same month. If we want to do it over 2 months. And the request is going to be asked that DCP conduct our elections. A representative, just one person, so that therefore everyone can then participate. Because if you're on the nominations committee, you can't run for more than 2 offices.
Yeah,
So-
no, that's fine.
So that's what is being proposed, and we're going to discuss probably at our next bylaw committee meeting. There will be no need for nominations.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
don't need
When you're
to
filling 2
collect.
positions and.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I think we suggested this document to death. And Mr. Krasinski has said that she will meet again in the next 2 weeks. Would it be okay if we have other suggestions or recommendations that we can simply communicate those?
Absolutely.
All righty.
Thank you so much. Ms.
There,
Skopczynski?
anything else? If anyone has any further suggestions or they're thinking about this and want to go, ooh, I should have mentioned that, just put it in an email to me. Or you can send it to Ann and Ann will forward it to me. 'Cause for those that have never worked on bylaws like this is really hard. I just want you to know, it's really, really hard. Okay, so the last recommendation for first read that we're bringing to you is the section on members. And we've been talking about this for several months. We've been considering what needs to be included in the concept of members and have landed on that APAB would consist of 25 voting members, and the chair or designee of each neighborhood planning unit shall have 1 vote. We have, you all saw a first read many, many months ago where there was a recommendation for non-voting members, but as we talked through that, the responsibilities and rights, I'll use that in quotes, of non-voting members really is the same as the general public. So it didn't really make sense to separate them out. And if you're a non-voting member, you can public comment. You don't have voting privileges. You're not invited to sit at our board table, etc. The sections 2 and 3 at the bottom, we added at the last bylaws committee, and unfortunately, the committee didn't have a chance to see the actual wording for it. So if anyone has any suggestions to that, please let me know. You want to think about it?
We can also email you suggestions or
Absolutely.
recommendations over the next several weeks, right? That's what the first read is all about.
Yep,
Exactly.
that's why it's first read. This one may take several reads,
Yes.
but it's critical. Yes. Well, that's the wish, but
Go ahead, Mr.
Where
Toomey.
it says, failure to provide the information will result in the NPU's representatives ineligibility to vote at the board meeting. I think in the previous bylaws, it stated that the same person that was designated before would continue to serve until such time they were changed or whatever.
actually, this is the language from the current bylaws.
Okay.
I just split it up. It's a longer paragraph in the current bylaws, and I just split it up into 2 sections to make it a little easier to read.
I guess my,
It's there, right there.
oh,
And the continued service of the sitting board member until either.
oh, okay, I missed it. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I didn't read the whole thing. All right.
It's
You have
okay.
a question for Ms. Nguyen?
No, he just
Okay,
stated
got it. Okay,
that.
all right, thank you.
Okay. In this version, and I'm not exactly sure why, in section 2, it says the chair of each MPU shall submit to the president, secretary, and Department of City Planning member. I'm not sure why secretary is crossed out. I think it's supposed to be president and secretary.
Originally, we did have that, when this was done.
Oh, good point.
Yeah,
Okay.
we had one.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Previously, it said recording, currently it says recording secretary. We
Mhm.
no longer have
Right.
recording.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to commend you on your hard work and efforts to bring these bylaws current. So I appreciate your work.
Kyle, thank you very much for saying that. We have a really, really good bylaws committee.
Well, the committee, I'm
I thought the
sorry.
meeting
The
on
committee.
Thursday.
I don't want to disenfranchise anyone's representation.
Right. We had an excellent bylaws committee meeting on Thursday. A lot of good discussion. A lot of good suggestions came out of it. And we've been trying to limit our meetings to 2 hours and have been consistently going to 3. So,
All right, so please remember,
okay, next time.
as you read over these, send your feedback immediately to Ms. Kopchinsky, or you can send it to me and I'll make sure she gets it. But we want you to thoroughly read both of the 2 amendments that are going to be voted on next month, so we can move this forward and get to other business. Was that it, Ms. Kopchinsky? Or did you have anything else?
Additional feedback.
Mr. Rao, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, this may or may not be something you care about. The section 1 where it says the Atlanta Planning Advisory should be composed of 25 voting members. I mean, I think that's what it is, but shouldn't that be tied somehow to the number of NPUs?
This was, I think, taken, in fact, one of my recommendations that I forgot to give you, Ms. Kopchinsky, was I would prefer that we put per the code and state the code that actually established APAB. And because it does say that the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board shall be composed of 25 voting members. I don't, you're asking, should it not state in here that
One for each
there,
NPU.
Okay,
It doesn't say that explicitly.
okay, so you want to say one for each NPU?
It kind of does in that second sentence that says the chair shall have one vote or their
No, all
designee.
that says is the chair designee will have one vote. It doesn't say that there are 25 NPUs.
But what if
And
there's,
it's only within the last 10 years that we've had 25. Before that, it was 24.
Well, it can be changed, I guess, to say the chair of each of the 25 NPUs shall, or something like that. But
I'm just
that's
pointing
something
it
we
out.
can discuss
I
at the
trust-
next meeting.
I trust Debbie to make the best choice.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Burnett.
Was the choice, sorry, in section 2, on the second paragraph of this last sentence, members should be a resident of the NPU they represent. Was that a specific choice to use the word should, meaning that it's not required, it's not necessary, it's just a recommendation? Bylaws typically don't make general recommendations like that.
So it
It's just
should,
a-
either
it's a
it's going
strange
to be
word.
may or shall. It should be shall.
shall or, yeah.
Okay, just
Shall, may, or shall. That's usually what's used.
Either or.
Ms. Skipkins, you got 2 more questions.
Whatever.
Thank you for catching that. So what's the answer?
I think I say Amy's hand first and then Mr. Toomer.
Section 2, the last sentence, Kyle.
So
Of the section?
Members
yeah, section
shall,
two.
members,
Should.
section 2, the last sentence says members should be a resident, and that's suggestive instead
Well,
of definitive.
so that would be out of line with who we have as members in our particular MPU. You do not have to reside in our MPU if you are a business owner or business representative. And so,
The discussion in the bylaws committee was that resident, and if you are gonna use this language, there should be a reference to the definition in the code, but the code defines resident. And it defines resident as someone who represents a business, organization, institution.
All right, Ms. Stout and then Mr. Toomer.
What do you mean?
it was discussed that they need to be.
So just to be clear, we're going with the 25 or nothing. When you say the
you're
chair
right.
can have a designee, the chair's designee, let me talk, is forever. It's not for like, I'm going out of town in October, go for me.
No, that's
In
not what that
October.
means. That's not what
Is
that
that what
means.
you're saying?
No, that's not what that means. That says that as the chair of your NPU, if you decide to serve as the voting member, you are the APAB member. But if you say, my time, I can't do it, I need to pull somebody from my NPU to serve as the NPU's voting member, then that is your designee, and you send it to us, letting us know that your NPU's voting member is someone other than you, the chair.
Forever and ever, Until
Yes.
there's a new.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Toomer, then I saw your hand go up, and then I saw Mr. Taylor.
Okay, that member should reside. I think that is stepping on the toes of the authority of the NPU. The NPU should have the ability to choose that. I don't believe that it is for APAB to say that that person could not represent them when they choose that person.
Okay, make sure you send your
And-
recommendation to the
and-
bylaws committee.
In prime example, one of our long-term members that is currently here would not be able to serve.
Okay, just
And-
make sure you send that to us in
Well,
writing.
I'm
Okay.
stating it now, so that should be a matter of record.
Okay, I saw Ms. Jones.
So following up with Ms. Stout and Mr. Rao, I think this is what Mr. Rao was getting to. It sounds like then that section 1 should read something like, after there are 25 voting members, the members shall be the chair of each neighborhood planning unit or their designee, and then adding the term, and there should be something in here about the terms of the membership. I don't know if it's later on, but I don't see it in here.
We don't determine that because each NPU has its own voting requirements for their chairs or whatever.
I understand what you're saying, but we should have terms for our members, for the board. So do you serve for 6 months? Do you serve for 8 months? Do you serve for a year? So if the MPU changes their designee, they can do that at any time. But for instance, if something happens and they need to change 6 months in, they
Mhm.
only serve for, if it's a year term, they only serve for 6 more.
Mhm. 6 more months. Okay.
Until we renew.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Miss, I saw Ms. Nguyen, Mr. Taylor, and then I saw your hand. So let's go in that order.
Yes, the discussion has ensued regarding that word, members should be a resident of the NPU. I hear clearly what Mr. Toomer is saying, but there's been some belief over time that, again, the spirit of the NPU set up somewhat 1975, was that individuals would have firsthand knowledge of the place that they live. They would understand the nuances and the machinations of that community, unlike, again, firsthand personal knowledge. And that's why I think many feels that that's relevant. Why? Because there is this belief that some forum shop, that it's not necessarily pursue being wedded to the issues that are specific to their NPU, but there's just a desire to be on the board without that ultimate understanding. It is your connection to the distinct issues in your community. And I think that's why that shell language seems to be most relevant and most compelling.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Taylor?
I just wanted to make one clarification, but almost also a comment, and this is related to last week, and just to really kind of stamp down who can vote and who can sit at the table, and it's to the language that it's the NPU chair. The NPU chair would be the one who takes the oath of office at the first of the year. So the NPU chair couldn't say, I'm going to be out of town, APAB delegate, go sit and vote for me. And, just to make it very clear, then the APAB delegate couldn't be out of town and say, hey, APAB alternate, go sit at the table and vote for me. So I really think whoever from the NPU, and I think we've scrapped alternates, but the chair or the APAB delegate, whoever takes that oath of office at the beginning of the year should be the only person who is allowed to sit at this table and to vote throughout the year. And that's it. There's no, you go this week, you go this week. Person who takes the oath of office should be the one who sits at the table and votes.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I saw somebody else first, Mr. Hunter.
I was going to just say that in terms of the membership question, in terms of residency, the idea of this board was to be a board of chairs. I am not, nor have ever been a chair, but I've served for some time now because my chair has designated me. But at the same time, I still meet the same requirements that he would have to meet to sit on this board. My chair cannot be the chair of my NPU and not either live or have a business in my NPU. And so therefore, that is why I think that this rule will be appropriate, because just because he, and I'm using the he pronoun because my chair is a male, if he chooses to designate someone else, it still needs to meet the minimum qualifications that he meets to serve as a chair and therefore serve on this board.
Okay, one last comment, Mr. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I need to correct something I said earlier. Oh, yes. In response to Mr. Lamont's question, I stated that in the bylaws committee meeting, the discussion was that we would use the code's definition of resident. But Mr. Kessler reminded me that we did move on from that conversation and that was not where the bylaws committee settled. It was, as Mr. Hunter just explained, intended, or per that discussion, the intent is that this means the person has to actually live in the MPU,
So,
not as defined by the code. I was mistaken.
Of the committee. Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, I just want to make sure that we're not moving into debating this issue and doing committee work.
Exactly.
And just making sure we're still giving just comments and recommendations.
Okay, thank you. We're going to take one more and then we're going to move on.
Piggyback on Mr. Taylor, I think the word I commonly hear in what he just outlined is no proxy vote, meaning that no one can come in and vote for that registered designated individual, whether we want to add that language or not. But I think that's essentially, as I've heard it described in other documents.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap this particular issue up, and by turning it back over to the Bylaws Committee, please, if you have recommendations, get those recommendations over to the Bylaws Committee within the next couple of weeks so that they can review them, incorporate them, or whatever is going to happen. This issue will be voted on at our December meeting. Thank you. All right, let's move on. Was that Mrs. Lopez? Did you have anything else? Okay, thank you so much. All right, appointments. If you look at your agenda, you'll see that we had for the ACRB, Ms. Christine Lloyd was listed. I passed out to you her resume last month, and there were questions raised by some members of the board about her having retired from the Atlanta Police Department. So after that, I went back and I took a look at the resume again, and it was brought to my attention that the ACRB has one slot that requires the appointee have had experience working for APD, and that is the City Council President slot. And since President Shipman has been in office, he's not appointed anyone to his ACRB slot. So what I did was I contacted his office, but before I contacted his office, I got Ms. Lloyd's permission to do so. I sent over information and her bio to his office, asking them to please take a look at her bio, since she was a 31-year veteran from the Atlanta Police Department, and his appointment does require that they have APD experience. So Kathy from his office sent over information, and I sent her email, but she wanted to talk to her in person, so I did send that over to them. So if you'll notice on the agenda, it says that this appointment is held, and the reason we held it was to give the president's office, President Shipman's office, an opportunity to say, to talk to her. And Miss Lloyd agreed with this, right? So that's where we are. And I see I have two questions.
So my question is, what does held mean? Are we now leaving our seat open to then
That
figure
means,
that out?
well,
Because I don't
no,
think that's
remember everybody on this, well, you may not be the chair. I sent to every chair in NPU's, chair of NPU G through L, asking you all to send in nominations of people for this slot. And of course, NPU NPU I did send in Ms. Lloyd as a recommendation. So officially, the slot is still open.
So you're
Okay.
still accepting nominations?
We can accept the nominations, yes. Okay. Now,
Are you kidding me?
So rather than being a representative to M through C, whatever the MPUs are, she was sent to President Shipman.
she was not sent. Her resume was sent to President Shipman's office for him to take a look at it because of her prior APD experience, and his appointment does require that. So, and that's the only one, from what I was informed, that's the only one in the ACRB roster that does require that. So that makes her, he corrected me. He said it should be an enforcement professional, not specifically APD, but her experience then suits that. So I will send.
May I just add another layer? We're really grateful because that slot has been vacant for almost a year, and we've had difficulty making quorum. So we're very grateful that that consideration is taking place.
All right, Miss Stout, go ahead.
I can't believe I didn't come one Saturday and you almost appointed an APD person to the Atlanta Citizen Review Board. This is ridiculous.
Miss Stout, those requirements for when that board was set up, just like our board was set up, and there were requirements, the people who were to appoint to that, I'm sorry, the organizations that are to appoint to that board, those were defined by their code. And that
I'm talking
code,
about APAB,
what about APAP?
that this would even be brought forward. And that it's still a possibility.
So we can't not just present someone.
Yeah.
Well, we can,
We can vote them down.
let's
Point of
vote them
order.
down.
Point of order. Are we taking,
No, it's
are
not.
we acknowledging speakers or?
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Toomer, I'm listening.
Contrary to, I know I was one of the people that brought up concern about that. But contrary to that, I don't believe that because she served the city as a police officer or a law enforcement person, that she should be automatically excluded.
No, she's not, no, we're not automatic, no, I'm sorry.
And wait,
Okay.
I'm not finished. And I think that's what the sentiment is being expressed right now. That was never my intention. It was a concern, and I just wanted to register.
Okay. No,
And I
she's
thank
not
you.
being excluded, and I apologize, I did not say this.
Not you.
No, I'm saying when I made my statement earlier, I did say to Ms. Lloyd, I got her permission to send her resume over to the president's office. But I also told her that if that did not work out, APAB still keeps her resume. And if she was still interested, we definitely would still present it before APAB. Listen, we had a citizen that wants to volunteer to do the work. And I know you and Mr. Hunter expressed your concerns about her previous employment. If there is some way this lady still can sit on this board because of her previous employment, I think we owe it to her to give her that opportunity. But if that doesn't work out, just like I told her, and I even told President Shipman's office, that if this does not work, then we still have her on our roster to be considered for NPUs G through L. No, we're not eliminating her. We're just trying to
Thank you.
help the ACRB as much as we can. That's all I can tell you. Mr. Hunter.
That's fine. I also thought that we also was supposed to invite her so we can talk to her at this meeting. That was discussed, but there seemed to be an alternative route that was taken. And I'm also concerned about that because there was a motion made, it failed, but the solution was that the body, because for me, part of my approach was that I did not want to see someone who was volunteering because I kind of figured out the temperament of this board, what it could potentially be in terms of the conversation, because she should be celebrated for the 31 plus years that she served at the Atlanta Police Department.
Yes.
But but I also do feel strongly that I don't think that she should serve on this board. Both things can be true from this capacity, from this in terms of the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board. I don't think that her seat should come from us. I feel strongly about that as well. But the solution that we decided last month was that she should come back and come to us and address us so we can have a conversation. And that is not being done because it appears you chose to take an alternative route. And I don't like that.
Okay,
personally.
no, and talking to her and letting her know that it had been sent over to President Shipman's office. We discussed that perhaps we would wait to have her come before APAB after the president's office had had an opportunity to talk to her. Miss,
I just have a question. So if the president's office decides that he wants to appoint her, that would be his appointment, right?
That would be
And
his
our
appointment.
seat would become.
And we still have
a
those
seat
seats
vacant.
available.
Well, the
Yes,
seat
sir.
is still vacant. So please continue to make recommendations. But in the past, when this person is not here, we haven't taken up these manners in discussion like this. So I would love to get to the person that's actually here today.
I just want to make sure folks understand she's not 31 years, that she wasn't a police officer. She worked as a civilian. Is that understood?
Yeah, she worked for the
I'm not sure if
department, but
folks
she was
understood that.
she was an officer.
That wasn't clear from the
Okay.
Yeah, she's,
Okay.
But that's why you wanted her here to have a discussion.
Yeah, right.
But that's not here, so can we
Move
go on?
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Lamont. The governing board of the Office of the Inspector General and Ethics Office. Last month, I passed out to you a letter from that office, s- basically stating that our previous appointee, Dr. Newmark, they had been pleased with his service and they were welcoming us to reappoint him. I also explained to you that that was Dr. Newmark's second term, which means he had served in that slot for 6 years. I further explained to you that the executive committee of this body um, instructed me early on in the year that we needed to not reappoint him because he had not been in the whole 3-year period. None of you have seen him. None of you have received a report from him. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, he was not answering our emails or our telephone calls. And really, I really respect the man, so I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's ill and nobody has told me. So I decided to start watching their meetings. And he was, of course, at all the meetings, making suggestions and whatever. But nonetheless, this is a slot where this person has served for 6 years, and you all did say that we wanted to open it up and extend the opportunity to other people. So today we have one person that has sent in his resume that should be in your packet, and that's Mr. Richard Taylor, our representative from NPUK. And we're going to ask Mr. Taylor if he would take the mic, go up to the mic, and we're going to allow you to ask him whatever questions you might have. I'm sorry.
That are relevant to the job.
Oh, and I've been reminded, the question should be relevant to the position. Thank you so much. Good morning, Mr. Taylor.
Good morning. And you guys know me. My name is Richard Taylor, member of APAB, secretary and zoning committee chair from NPUK. My background, I went to Clemson, Vanderbilt, worked in finance, started my real estate company and developed affordable housing for people experiencing homelessness. And I think this office is extremely important. The job they do is extremely important. And I just want to underscore that, you know, I take it very seriously. I try to keep ethics at the forefront of everything that I do. We recently won the Community Impact Award because of that. Recently won the Regional Excellence Award. Shout out Stephanie, who we were up there with. And you know, we've since founded a parent-teacher association and actually had Vanderbilt, my alma mater, out there earlier this week to try to create a pipeline to get children from English Avenue, from NPUL into or on a track to get into schools like Vanderbilt. So, you know, that's some of the things that I do and some of the values that I hold dear. And that's why I think this is a really good position where I could make an impact, be objective, and support the city of Atlanta. So thank you guys.
All right, so Mr. Lamont and Mr. Toomer.
Mr. Taylor, thank you for putting your hat in the ring for this position. Given your nuance in the community and oftentimes having to work with city leadership to produce affordable housing projects and care for our unhoused, do you think that will affect your ability to be impartial when making decisions?
Absolutely not. And I've had a vote come up before my NPU that I was involved in the project, and I proudly announced that I was involved in that project and resigned myself from voting or making any comment on it.
Okay, Mr. Toomer.
Mr. Taylor, thank you for volunteering. I am in support of your nomination based on the answer to this question that I have. you are fully exposed to a lot of work. And based on your activities, do you feel that you can really take another task on? And if the answer is yes, I recommend that we support you.
Absolutely. I was an investment banker for X number of years and worked late into the night. Also, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but I ran off to South America and spent a year backpacking around the world. So I can travel 20 plus hours at a time as well.
Oh, I saw Mr. Rao and then Ms. Nguyen.
Go ahead.
Oh, hey, Richard, thank you. Thank you for even working on the Transportation Committee. Have you actually had a chance to dive into what the work of the Inspector General's office? Have you had a chance to look at some of the major issues that have come before them? Do you know when they meet? Have you really looked at the logistics of getting into the work?
Yes, I believe it's the third Thursday of the month. I actually read through the last few minutes and watched recordings of the last few videos. So I first asked Chair Ms. Phillips about it last week, and she recommended that before I respond to it, that, I go through, watch the videos, minutes, and really kind of get an understanding of what it is that I did. So I did all of those things before responding and saying, I think that this would be a good position where I could really make an impact.
Mr. Rao?
Yes. So you watched the videos, and you had too. And I don't know myself, but what percent, isn't the largest percentage of these cases have to do with city employees, ethics issues in the city government, right? And you're making judgments about that based on presentations of data and information. As a real estate developer who would like to be regarded favorably by the city in many cases with regard to projects, funds, there's kind of a mix of public-private stuff going on in the city. And the previous occupant, who I know personally, was kind of insulated from any retribution as a result of how he might vote on the ethics board, because he was a university employee. Does it give you any pause to think that you might be on someone's bad list as a result of, what you might conclude along with others on the ethics committee within the city? For example, a city council person could be charged with an ethics violation, and you might be making a ruling on that. And it might very well be your own city council person. Sorry. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a very difficult decision. That's something that not with a elected official, but with business people that I've dealt with before. And when it comes down to it, right is right and wrong is wrong. And I believe if you keep that in mind, you'll sometimes make hard decisions and it'll sometimes come back on you. But I really try to let my conscience be the thing that guides me.
Yeah, I'm not questioning you personally. I mean, as an intelligent person who's clearly well-educated and whatnot, and it might just very well be that you are, you're not sufficiently protected. But it's your choice. If you decide to take that jump, I'm fine with that. But I just want to make sure you told us your thinking on this.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Taylor, I think what I'm hearing Mr. Rao ask is this. Because of the nature of your business and the nature of what actually happens with the Inspector General situation, are you mentally prepared to know that there are going to be times when you're going to have to notify that chair of that board that you have to recuse yourself because of your involvement in any way? And I know that has to happen sometimes in almost any board, but I think what he's saying is you need to be aware that there are going to be times because of the nature of your business that you might have to do that.
Absolutely. And I've actually, it's a tough decision, but I've already done it once in my NPU. There was a project that came up for a vote or review and comment that I was involved with, and I stepped back and I recused myself from commenting or voting on it as the zoning committee chair and secretary and APAB delegate of the NPU. And I did that willingly.
Okay. Ms. Nguyen had a question, and then I saw Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, Richard, you don't think this will conflict with your role here as a voting member at APAB, do you?
I do not believe so. If it does conflict, I'm more than happy to announce that to the board and recuse myself. I think it will, however, add to APAB that a voting member is here. I know the reason that I'm standing here right now is because the current appointee was not here. I'm here open for questions and to give reports.
So, and he never appeared, so how will we get updates from, I mean, I suspect some of
the
it.
agenda. He'll be on the agenda. He will make reports.
No, please hear me out. We never saw Mr. Newkirk, so I'm just trying to figure out what his process will be. And some of it's privilege, what's the nature of the
Yeah, some of it's
update?
privilege. Since
Yeah.
he is a member of the board, he will be here at the meeting. So when it comes time to give the report for that office, he, just like with.
I get it, but there was
Okay.
never a spot on our agenda that dealt with that
Oh,
office.
well, it's on there. It's on here now.
No,
Okay, I got you.
okay,
All
okay.
right, Mr. Hunter.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, now, wait a minute. Everybody's seconding. Who gave the first second? Okay, Mr. Lamont. Thank you so much, Mr. Lamont. All right, it has been properly motioned and seconded that Mr. Richard Taylor be appointed as our recommendation to the governing board of the Office of the Inspector General and Ethics Office for the next 3-year appointment. All those in favor? Should we do?
Any discussion?
I'm sorry, is there any discussion on the motion? I apologize. All right, let's do a quick roll call vote and get that taken care of. Mr. Rao?
Yes.
Mr. Burnett?
Yes.
Ms. Skopczynski?
Yes.
Mr. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Penny?
In favor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Belil.
Yeah, that's a part of.
Ms. Stout?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Hunter?
In favor.
Mr. Toomer?
Yes.
Mr. Lamont?
Yes.
Ms. Flowers?
Yes.
Mr. Hassan?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
In favor?
Ms. Nguyen?
Yes.
Ms. Glover?
Yes.
I'm a yes, and Mr. Kessler?
Abstain.
Abstain. All right, so,
Given the democracy, you're given the ability to vote for yourself. So if you, or he can.
At least.
recuse
I would have to recuse myself from this vote.
okay, all right. So with one abstention, that motion.
Two abstentions.
Who-
Kessler and Taylor.
Oh, two abstentions, okay. With two abstentions, Mr. Taylor, we'd like to say thank you so very much for, they're always talking.
Make your point. Do you have a point of order?
Well, yes, point of order. Ms. Stout, while y'all were still voting, said she wanted to change her vote to an abstention. So that is proper.
It was afterwards, but either way.
We had already taken the vote. I'm not sure, after the vote has been taken, can they come back and abstain?
While you were still voting.
I don't know the timing of it, but she wants to abstain.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to abstain, is that? Okay, all right, so, all right, ladies and gentlemen. So with 3 abstentions, that motion passes. And again, Mr. Taylor, we'd like to thank you and thank you for volunteering. He has been taking an inordinate number of leadership courses throughout the city for the past year or two. And I think I saw on Facebook that you received your award, I think from the last one yesterday or somewhere this week. So those are all wrapping up. So he knows now he'll have more time to devote to this. Thank you so much. And it will be good for us to have somebody on our sitting here that can bring us information. Okay.
Thank you all so much.
All right. Moving right along, Mr. Martin is not here. We had on our agenda for last month, we didn't get to it, Resolution 23006, Plan Development Resolution. Mr. Kessler, are you handling that for him today?
They're not in the packet.
They're not in the packet?
That means we didn't get it.
Okay.
We'll get it again.
I guess because we gave them to everybody last month, and we just didn't get to discuss it. Okay.
If there's other instructions, we need to have them spelled out.
Okay, all right. That resolution will be placed on next month's agenda again with any others that his committee completes for this year. Board and task force reports. We don't have any of our appointees from the ACRB here. Ms. Nguyen, was there anything significant that, Ms. Nguyen is the appointee from the city council, but she actually sits on our board, so was there any?
Other than we're having a great big Christmas party, the 14th of December, lots of awards. It's designed to incentivize the board members who work very hard, 800 pages a month sometimes, coupled with the outreach. All you can do to get folks nominated to fill, I think we've got 6 or 7 of our 13 slots, of maybe 15 slots that are open and have been open some as much as, I think, 18 months. So if you hear the plea of the chair to do whatever you can do to encourage folks to take a look at the ACRB, I think it's an organization that has proven to well serve the citizens of Atlanta.
Okay, thank you so much. Ms. Kay Stevens is our appointee to the Alcohol Technical Advisory Group. And if you remember, she gave a report for our wrap-up of the actual study a couple of months ago, about 2 months ago. She did send over a report. She said she couldn't be here today to report in person, but one of the key aspects of it is in developing the recommendations from ATAG 3, it required pretty much a new computer system that would incorporate all of the changes that we were recommending with the current system. And the good part here is the city council has begun working on that. I am going to email you, all of you, her report. She identified just a few things that have been happening. And after you get that, if you have any questions, please feel free to send over questions to Kay, to Councilmember Juan, or myself. Okay?
Organization is in sunset,
Huh?
Are they sunset?
No, we'll still be meeting for the next, I think, almost a year. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question.
With
This new software, will it help get licenses to businesses sooner?
Exactly. And with the proposed setup, the current system that, seems to be delaying the process, as you say, the applicant would be able to go in and put in information himself or herself, and that would speed up their LRB or the police department being able to do their part. And it's going to be terrific. Everything that we did depends upon this, the city providing that system. And if they provide that system, you're going to see substantial changes in the issues that you had in your NPUs regarding a lot of the LRB applications. So we're looking forward to it. And when I send you the report, please, just like I said, if you have any questions, send them to Kay. She's waiting for them. She's very enthusiastic about this. She's the vice chair of the committee. And you can either send those to her, to me, or even to Councilmember Juan. Okay. All right. Beltline TADAC. Have you had your first meeting with the Beltline TADAC yet?
We have not had the first meeting with the Beltline TADAC. I have had my introduction, however, and I'm scheduled to take my oath of office, I believe, the 28th.
All right,
The
very
end of
good.
year meeting is December 12th, and then we've got our first introduction or big planning strategy meeting the end of January.
Yeah,
but it
they
has not
always
been
have it in
set yet.
January. Yes. Okay, thank you. Do I have anybody else here on the Beltline from being appointed by somebody else? Anybody?
Actually, I think I'd make one more comment relative to the TADAC. I think I can insert this here because these deals are in the Beltline overlay. Recently, the Atlanta Regional Commission presented their Regional Excellence Award at the State of the Region breakfast. I'm emailing this picture around. Both me and Stephanie Flowers won awards for our projects. And I want to say that I think that does speak to the strength of APAB and the representatives, the quality of the representatives that we have around this table right here.
Thank you so much. I did see that this morning on Facebook. I didn't see the photo of Stephanie, but I did see the one of you getting the award. And let's give them a hand because that was a lot of work. And if you get a chance to check it out on Facebook, it explains to you a little bit about what was entailed there. So we are very, very proud of both of you.
That was pursuant to their involvement in TADAC.
No, they're pursuant to their involvement with, it's an ARC project.
Atlanta Regional.
Secure is also on TADAC.
Huh?
Secure is also on TADAC.
You on the TADAC also?
So if
Okay.
you want any updates, just a quick update.
Okay.
One of the members did resign. And so that was an appointment from the Beltline the Beltline network. So if you have recommendations, you can probably talk to that organization or recommend people. The annual business meeting will be on February 3rd. So it won't conflict with this meeting like it did last year. And there have been some, there's another resignation. Sorry. Anyway, sorry, I'm trying to look at your note. That's some notes. Okay, so that's it.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. The License Review Board, Mr. Ross is not here today. Invest Atlanta, yes, ma'am.
I do have a report.
Okay, I'm ready.
Invest Atlanta, I will be sending out to you a report that came in late yesterday about the meeting we had on Thursday. But today I want to bring to your attention two programs that were approved that are absolutely awesome. One is $250,000 to provide down payment for home buyers participating in Habitat for Humanity home ownership program. And so that will be part of the report. And another one, there is a document, a resolution that was approved to support a citywide program called Anti-Displacement Tax Fund Program. And that is to assist seniors with the increase of home taxes. And that will be coming out to you also. And it hasn't been officially launched, but there will be registration and forms that you will have to sign up for this program. And Habitat for Humanity has its own structure on how you get involved with that organization. and it is citywide. So this will be sent to you later on today via email. Also, you are receiving notifications from Invest Atlanta if there are applications in your area for development and other types of things. You've been receiving them, and they do mention my name. And so if you have any questions about it, you can reach out to me via email, and we can discuss it that way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. You might not know if you're not the chair of your NPU, but if you would check with your chairs of your NPUs to make sure that they are receiving those notifications from Invest Atlanta. That was one of the requests that we asked of Ms. Glover some months ago, and she did present it to Invest Atlanta. So they started sending those out, and her name does appear on them, so that we'll know that, it is a result of her request. So check with your chairs to make sure you're getting them.
Okay.
All right? Yes, sir.
If I could just make one comment.
Yes, sir.
Since we're on economic development, you all may or may not know, but I sit on the Development Authority of Fulton County Board,
Right.
which is your other economic development engine from the county. And oftentimes we come into your communities without much discussion and produce developments. And so if you have a concern around a development in your community that is not coming from Invest Atlanta, but from the Development Authority, I'm always all ears. And before you cuss me out, Google me, because that will save you a lot of time.
Mr. Lamont, Mr. Lamont, since you actually sit on that board, is there a possibility that you can provide this board with information on those developments that have been approved?
Yes.
Would you do that for us? Because basically, Mr. Martin this has been one of his pet peeves for years, that you all are
So it
fun.
is important that we don't get into debate and I just give a report.
Right.
Because there are many feelings around
How it works.
how development happens. So I'd love to come have the ability to give you the facts of what have occurred
Please.
and to move on.
All right, great. That would be perfect. Thank you.
If I may.
Yes,
can I
ma'am.
Please ask a question. Mr. Lamont, it's just a very quick question. What is, maybe a quick question, maybe. What is the Fulton County Development Authority Board's position on community engagement or improving it for the future?
So I chair our Strategic Initiatives Committee, and we are in the process of developing a more robust community engagement program.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate
And you'll keep
that.
us informed of that?
I will,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
without commentary.
Okay, without commentation. Okay, I got you. All right. On the.
I'll Google you.
Okay, I will Google you, right. On the committee reports, we've already heard the bylaws committee report. CDHS and zoning, are you speaking for him this morning? A long time ago.
Did he submit a report?
I didn't receive one. Okay, all right, so he did not submit a report for this month.
There's no new business coming out of the committee.
Okay, what about Committee on APAC? Was there anything?
The Committee on APAB met this morning. There was one resolution that was adopted that I will read now for the benefit of the body. That the Committee on APAB urges APAB to urge the City of Atlanta's Department of City Planning to have discussions and resolutions with disenfranchised delegates for NPU C, S, and W, and all others regarding Steve Carr's complaint letter of 16th October 2023 to APAB.
Okay.
That was the one resolution out of committee.
I don't think I understood that.
I can read it again.
What was the recommendation?
That the Committee on APAB urge APAB to urge the City of Atlanta's Department of City Planning to have discussions and resolutions with disenfranchised delegates from NPU C, S, and W, and all others regarding Steve Carr's complaint letter of the October 16th, 2023 to APAB.
Okay, Mr. Hunter, you have a question?
What was the vote on this resolution?
That was a 2-0 vote.
2-0?
Yep.
It sounds like that resolution failed.
No,
2-0.
2 in support, None in opposition.
It doesn't sound like a quorum.
No, how many abstentions?
We don't record abstentions.
Oh, okay.
But it's a legitimate question. How many
Leah?
people did not vote?
It's a zero.
There were 5 people in attendance at the meeting.
And it was only 2 people that voted, is that voted for it? You said only 2 people voted for it? Okay, so then that motion, well, you said it was a resolution. So did it, apparently then it failed?
No, it passed.
Who were
Two-
the 2 people
2 to
that
nothing.
voted?
Yes. I have it written down.
Thank you.
Please.
What are we voting?
For them.
I vote no because it's misinformation. They're not delegates. They're not disenfranchised because they're not representatives, right?
Let's
So
vote.
the motion is premised on misinformation.
All right, I'm hearing different things. Were you saying something too, Mr.?
That comes as an automatic motion because it's out of committee.
Mhm.
So I'd love to go ahead
And take the vote on it?
Yep.
All right, would you then restate, I guess, what it is we're voting? Okay, wait a minute, okay, did everybody understand what he said? Now, no, I'm required as the chair to restate the motion and,
Do you want to restate it?
as it's written here. Yes, ma'am.
Don't we have a precedentary rule that says that there's not 3 voting members at a committee that you need a second to the, I think that's the way Jim operates when he is short.
I'm not sure, Debbie. I'm really not sure. All right, I'm going to read the motion on the floor. If you have objections to it, let's not argue about it. You vote no. That's as simple as that. The resolution states that the Committee on APAB urges APAB to urge the City of Atlanta's Department of City Planning to have a discussion and resolutions with disenfranchised delegates from NPUs C, S, and W, and all others regarding Steve Carr's complaint letter of October 16, 2023 to APAC. That is the motion. Do we have any other questions regarding the motion? If not, then we will take a vote on the motion, starting with Mr. Rao.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Huh?
I think not.
Okay, so that's a no, right? Am I right? Am I-
Yes, it's a
okay.
no.
That's a no. Let's be specific. That's a no. Okay, hold on a second. Mr. Burnett?
No.
Okay. Huh?
You don't have to record it.
I just write it down for my own psychic. Ms. Skopczynski?
No.
Mr. Thurman?
Yes.
You want a yes? Okay. Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Penny? No?
No.
All right. Mr. Taylor?
No.
Okay. Ms. Bellil?
Abstain.
Abstain. All right, thank you. Ms. Stout?
No.
All right, got you. Mr. Hunter?
Abstain.
All right. Mr. Toomer?
Abstain.
All right. Mr. Lamont?
Yes.
You voting yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Mr. Hassan?
Abstain.
Okay. Ms. Jones?
No.
No. Ms.
Abstain.
Abstain, all right.
Abstain.
Okay. Mr. Kessler?
Abstain.
Abstain. And so that's everybody.
You didn't vote, Ms.
Uh,
If you are you voting?
I vote no, so just add me to that. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 noes. 1, 2, 3 yeses. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 abstentions. Is that what you get? All right, so, huh? Yes, ma'am.
I know we discussed before that we have, be able to provide the opportunity to explain our no, and so I just wanted on public record that my no is around the language of the resolution. I don't know what urge means.
Mhm.
And so if that committee wants to present another resolution with clearer language, I would suggest that.
All right, so effectively, that resolution fails. All right, moving on. We might get out of here halfway on time today, people. Transportation Committee, they didn't have a meeting or anything. Public Safety, none.
Madam Chair, we do have, Richard, we do have an announcement. I think we previously submitted a resolution into the record maybe months back, 2 or 3 months back.
You did?
Yeah, it was regarding the impediments at the train, at train stops. Richard kind of did most of
I
the.
can't hear. What is happening?
Oh.
I can't hear what she said.
She's given a transportation report, and she's saying that she and Mr. Taylor had worked together on a resolution that was submitted some months ago. I know I did see something from you regarding the issue with the trains blocking the train tracks, but I don't remember that being submitted as a resolution from the Transportation Committee. Did I miss something? I saw where you drafted it up, but I don't think it was ever.
Yes, it was included in the package. It did not make the agenda because it wasn't timely submitted.
Oh,
But it was
okay.
included in the package.
All right, can we ask that you all resubmit that? And then we can discuss and vote on that at the next meeting,
Yes.
okay? Mr. Hunter, what are you shaking your head about?
Madam Chair, when was the last Transportation Committee meeting?
We
So
met
how does the committee have a resolution?
We
That
met,
is
we met
disingenuous.
recently. We met last week. We had met, I think, the month before. But we pretty much dwelled on that transportation, on the.
Okay,
issue.
all right, let's back up, Here, we're back into that area where we tend to create problems. If a committee is officially meeting, I don't care whether it's 2 people or if it was 1 person shows up and nobody else shows up, you still have to notice the meeting. And we did not notice the meeting on last month's agenda that transportation would be meeting at any point this month. So I'm going to say that if you all are still working on issues, please give me a date and time when you're going to be meeting, because we have to notice those meetings for them to be considered official. Ms. Stout.
Okay, I guess I hate to say this. Aren't we supposed to have an agenda that tells us what we're going to vote on? But we just voted on something that's not on our agenda, and now we're being asked to vote on.
You're
So
right.
if it comes out
You're
of
right.
committee, a committee report, if it says committee report, that means we're going to have to vote on something, maybe, we don't know.
We've
We didn't
discussed.
get a report in advance.
We've discussed this before. I think if you remember at last month's meeting or the month before that, NPUE came and expressed their concerns about our accepting stuff directly from committees that have not been submitted to the board for the board to review and, work on and vote on at the next meeting. That has been one of our real serious issues. If it comes out of committee, they can make the motion out of committee, and committee, of course, motions don't require a second. So,
But a report is not a voting matter.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I agree with you. Yeah, I understand what she's saying, and I agree with you.
So I think that by introducing, with all due respect, to MPUE, that issue into this discussion convolutes it unfairly. The reason why there is a mix-up is that Committee on APAB meets an hour before this meeting.
Okay.
So Jim does a really good job of getting his resolution in advance because they meet not an hour before this meeting. So that makes the inconsistency in terms of when the committee meets and brings forth business. And we have been relaxed, in my opinion, with our rules and allowing them to proceed, but because they meet an hour before this meeting. But in terms of what MPUE sent, I am in total disagreement because that motion that came out for that vote did not come out of a committee. The discussion rose out of committee, but Mr. Lamont made the vote as a member of this body, and it was proper.
And it was a
And it
separate
was
motion.
It was, and it was proper. So let's not convolute issues and do little zingers and points. The reason why they.
I'm talking about, yay,
Well, so the
how
reason-
I
like this anymore,
how
anyway.
I decide if I'm gonna come is what's on the agenda to vote on.
Because the problem is that Committee on APAC meets an hour before this meeting.
Let's kind of table this for a second. That is why you spent all that time this morning discussing committees and why we are having to make these adjustments in our bylaws. So remember, at next month's meeting, you're going to be voting on the committee agenda. If you see something now that you want to be addressed in that, please send that to the bylaws committee. Okay? That's the only way we're going to resolve this.
Madam Chair, may I? This all kind of ensued from the issue around that transportation report. What I will say is, I think everybody remembers Jareem was in place. He went through enormous work to convene a transportation committee, even had, I think, something set up with, food or a little, was unable to. So somewhere along the way, I inherited the role. Richard approached me, and we just started discussing, and we kind of drew something up and said, well, maybe if we provide this, we'll galvanize more, what is the word I'm looking for? More participation. So it was strictly an effort to put something before members without vote to say that we are collectively pursuing issues that relate to transportation. This is one of those, hoping that someone would say, yes, when, where, and how. And that was the genesis of what we've done. But essentially, we had a predecessor, and this has just been very difficult to get folks to engage or to even reach out. I mean,
All right, I'd like to
Point of
recommend,
order.
let me just recommend.
We have a point of order.
Okay, excuse me, I know you got,
Go
you're
ahead.
calling
Go
for the
ahead.
point
I
of
yield.
order?
I yield.
Okay, go ahead. I heard him say point of order, I heard you. Go ahead.
Basically, we're discussing a meeting that did not take place
Properly.
properly. It took place between two parties where they had a discussion. It was not a committee meeting.
Okay.
And so we are reporting a discussion, and that's very valid. And I appreciate the work that was done, but it cannot be considered a committee meeting.
It's
to be
absolutely-
Okay,
brought before
and
this
that
board.
was
It's
what I
absolutely
was
considered
about to
a
say.
committee meeting when you have majority of your committee discussing committee
No,
topics.
It's not.
Yes, it is.
If
You can have
three
quorum.
council members go to a bar, that's not. a
Excuse me,
meeting.
I'm talking. You can have quorum by mistake and be out of order.
Exactly.
And that is exactly what happened. And so it needs to happen in a more formalized structure so that we can avoid these types of situations.
All right, that's what I was just about to say. Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Stout. Here's where we are. Mr. Taylor drafted up a resolution that I did receive. And I don't know whether it was actually circulated to this board or not. I am going to ask Mr. Taylor and Ms. Nguyen if they will circulate that resolution to the board. The issue is critical, all right? After you've circulated that resolution, then the Transportation Committee, if you're going to discuss this, you need to set up a Transportation Committee meeting. Give me the date and the time so we can get that posted, get that out to everybody, and address that issue. The issue is critical. And yes, I do appreciate the work that you did on that, but we have to do things appropriately. It's probably going to be too late to get it on this agenda, of course, but if you all want to have a meeting during the month of December, get it to me so I can get it to planning. It can get posted on the website. We can print up that sheet that we need to put in front of the door, but let's do it appropriately, okay?
Well,
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I don't want to run this into the
Okay.
ground, but the bottom line is, we've had committee meetings, and there's still question as to whether or not they're meeting pursuant to the rules. I mean,
Okay, all right.
so
I
I
know.
think the real problem is getting folks to come meet face to face. If we're on
Okay.
Zoom, you can get the folks in attendance, but it's the face to face.
Okay, well, that is going to be another issue that we're going to have to discuss. Mr. Penny,
Point of order, it's 12:35,
thank you.
12:36.
All right. Are you making a motion to extend the meeting, or are you making a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion that we extend the meeting to 12:45.
Okay, people, stop being rude. There's a motion on the floor. Did I get a second for the motion?
I do, but it's a 2-minute
Yeah.
report. Or I
Can
can
I,
make it 2 minutes.
can I get a second on the motion? It is now 12:37. He's making a motion to extend the meeting to 12:35. Can I get a second on the motion? You got a second? Thank you, Mr. Hassan. Is there anybody that opposes extending until 12:45? It is now 12:37. Is anybody opposed to that? Thank you very much. We're going to move on and ask Ms.
No, you got utilities committee.
Oh, Mr. Hunter, has there been a utilities committee
No.
meeting? All
And we
right.
don't have no business before this board.
Okay,
'cause
thank
we
you
have
so
not
much. The executive committee, basically, we've already discussed everything that actually happened relative to the executive committee.
We did not have a quorum and we did not meet.
Yeah.
We did not have a quorum, we did not meet.
He said, we did not have a quorum, so we did not meet. So that takes care of that. All right. Let's move on. We're going to go to the Department of City Planning and let her give her report.
So real quickly, you have a copy of Robert's Rules of Order in brief.
Thank you.
Please bring that with you every month so that you can keep order in your own meetings and not rely on anyone else to keep order for you. As a member of the board, you have an equal right and responsibility to maintain order in this meeting, and to be heard appropriately in this meeting when acknowledged, et cetera. So compliments of DCP.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, you're welcome. We, as I mentioned, will be doing some strategic planning again in February or March. I'll handle that the same way we did earlier this year, unless y'all object. We'll send out a few dates and ask everybody to vote on the date. We'll take the date that works for the greatest number of people. I am also right now asking for your recommendations on consultants. If there are consultants that you, not in this moment, if there are consultants that you have used before or that you have heard good things about, or in any case want us to involve in your strategic planning, please just email that to me or to Daniel or Kip so that we can make sure we send out the request for proposal to the consultant that you're recommending. As it relates to the volunteer positions, appointments that y'all have, two things on the ACRB G through L, I'll send out an email, unless there's an objection, I'll send out an email to the chairs and the neighborhood presidents. I think sending it to just the chairs is probably not going to get you the response. It hasn't worked yet,
Right.
so it's probably not going to start working miraculously, but we can help with that by reaching out to the neighborhood presidents as well. And then we're also working, this is more for the next few months, not this week or next week, but we're also working on building out a section on our website that includes opportunities for engagement, opportunities for people who want to serve the community. They don't really know where to start. They don't really know where to go, but hey, they might be a good fit for an ACRB seat or some other seat. We'll have that spelled out on our website. Any openings that y'all have or anything else that we become aware of, we'll list that on our website. The 50th anniversary, we kicked that off. I think I may have mentioned that to y'all last month. I can't remember. But in the first phase of the 50th anniversary, we'll celebrate in 3 phases. And in the first phase, we'll be honoring our trailblazers, all of those that were around to help create the framework of the NPU system, those that were around to serve as neighborhood association presidents and NPU chairs and APAB presidents and people poring over maps to figure out boundaries back then. We want to acknowledge and celebrate them in the first phase. So if you know of folks in your neighborhood, in your MPU, or anywhere in the city who were instrumental in creating this MPU system, please let us know. I'll send out that link to y'all. There's a short nomination form. We just ask for their name and their contact info and what they did or why you're telling us that we should contact them. We'll send you that link as well. And last but not least is, two things. This is more announcement or begging for help. Y'all probably know, if you didn't know before, you're going to hear me say it right now. I have stickler tendencies, and I don't like when things are messy and just go kind of crazy. So we have a whole bunch of processes in our team that help us serve better. This is a mess, and I don't like it. So, and I know that y'all don't like it either. You don't like not knowing what's in front of you. You don't like not having a document that everybody else at the table has, but you don't have it because it wasn't put at your seat and all that stuff. That only happens when we get stuff late, period. Mm-hmm. So in light of what you've discussed here with your bylaws amendments, some of which you voted on, some of which you will vote on, the spirit of the board is clear in that you want your meetings and your materials a week in advance. Therefore, we're going to ask that you help us help you. In the same way that we send out a draft of MPU agendas 2 weeks before the meeting, and we give the MPU chair 1 week to make edits and changes and whatnot, and then we publish the final a week before the meeting. We're doing the same thing here. I had asked Daniel to hold off on that until January, but this is just not working well. So if you have anything to be included in the December agenda, I'm going to tell you the date right this second. And that's not to say that we don't appreciate the work that y'all are doing. I know that it's all volunteer work, and I know that it's a lot of it, but in order for us to serve you in a way that I can be proud of, we have to have some timelines here. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. All right, so if we don't have it by December the 8th.
Okay, let me stop you right there for a second. Our executive committee meeting is the second Monday. Okay? And at that meeting, that's where we actually approve the agendas and whatever documents and stuff are going to be sent to you. And it was our thinking that we would get those documents to Kip by that Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay? So if what you're proposing is going to make us have to change dates, then we perhaps need to discuss the date change before we make this final adjustment.
Y'all can discuss a date change. You can discuss whether the executive committee even needs to exist. Okay. You can discuss whether it needs to slow down the agenda production process. My guess would be that it doesn't need to slow down that process at all. So 45, fine by me. I have one last thing, but that's the bottom line. If we don't have it by the 8th, it's not going to be published. It's not going to be noted on the website timely, which we would like to do. It's not going to be emailed out to this board a week before the meeting, which the board has made clear that it wants. We can't do that if we don't have it by the 8th. So if whatever else needs to change to support that will help.
Yeah, we'll have to make changes there, because if you want it by the 8th, we don't actually meet until the 11th. So we have to work on some changes.
Okay. And then the last thing is related to the venue. I received notice this past week that the old council chambers will be closed to everyone for approximately 4 months, which I'm going to translate to be 6 months. But from January through April, we will not have access to this room. No one at City Hall will have access to this room. So we'll have to temporarily move our meetings. My team has scouted out a couple of places. I just want to manage expectations right now. It's temporary. Wherever we end up is temporary. My priority has been finding a space that will allow us to sit in the same format collaboratively, because everyone has, we have not received negative feedback from the board on sitting this way. In fact, on the contrary, we got a lot of positive feedback on that. And that's about it. Yeah, so the two places we've looked at were a little small, but they will still accommodate the board and a few seats for public comment. I mean, for the public. And that's it for me.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
What is
December,
it?
you'll still be in here, by the way. It's
Okay.
just starting January.
Yes, Mr. Toomer. Amy is jumping out of her seat.
Two quick things. One, what has become of the reorganization of the NPU? And can you give us a report on that later?
Yeah, I can give
Okay.
you a report on that, and I can tell you quickly now, the 5-second answer is that we're taking that up in phase 3 of the 50th anniversary.
Okay. Okay. And then the other thing is, can we possibly get a round table so we can see all of the people's names?
I can try to build a round table that accommodates 20 people.
How about an octagon?
22.
And what is it, Amy?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you so very much. It has been properly motioned by Amy Stout that we adjourn, and it has been
Okay.
second. So everybody, who is that abstaining?
Call a roll call vote.
Everybody, please have a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. We look forward to seeing you back here, same time, same place in December.